Is this thing on?
Yep, we're rolling.
Oh, hey! I am so glad that you decided to join us for the kids' Bible story, because we've got a great story for you today about Joseph and the colorful coat. And I decided to wear this colorful coat in kind of celebration of what Joseph's coat might have looked like. But we're really not sure what it looked like. But we'll get to that in a minute. Well, anyway, I wanted to tell you a little bit about this story, but in order to help you out, we need to help you understand what Joseph's family did kind of for a living. And that is that they raised animals, specifically a lot of sheep and a lot of goats. Yep, a lot of goats and a lot of sheep. No, I'm not kidding you. A lot of goats and a lot of sheep. Well, anyway, the story starts when Joseph was younger, kind of as a boy. And one day, his older brothers were out and watching the sheep and taking care of them, and Joseph was out there just kind of hanging out. But he noticed that his brothers were doing some things that maybe they shouldn't have been doing. And so he ran back to his dad and he said, "Hey, Dad, I want you to know that my brothers are doing this thing that they shouldn't be doing." Now, his dad wasn't very happy about it, so he probably went and talked to the brothers about it, which then upset the brothers, and they were really angry at Joseph, instead of maybe perhaps being angry at themselves or fixing what they had done wrong. Well, the story continues, because Joseph just happened to be his dad's favorite. And his dad gave him a really special, you guessed it, a colorful coat. Or in that day, it would have been more like a robe that he would have worn. And it might have looked something like this with these colors. It might have looked like some of these. Or maybe even like someone else's apron that might look like this. We're really not sure what it looked like, but here's what we know. It was really colorful and it was really special. And Joseph wore that coat with joy and pride because it was a symbol of his father's great love for him. Well, as you can imagine, that didn't make his older brothers any happier. In fact, it really upset them even more. But then there's something else that happened that even made the situation worse. And that is that Joseph started having some really strange dreams. Dreams about like one batch of wheat bowing down to some other batches of wheat. And the sun and stars and the moon bowing down to him. And he went and told these dreams to his family. And his family, specifically his brothers, were rather upset by them, because one of the things that they thought the dreams might mean is that they, the older brothers, were someday going to bow down to Joseph. And they said, "No way, Jose," even though his name was Joseph. Well, one day, they were out in the field and they were talking. And they were just talking about Joseph like, "I don't really like him. I've had enough of this kid." And they looked off in the distance, and guess who they saw? Joseph. Well, you may ask, well, how did they know it was him way off in the distance? You guessed it. It was because of that colorful coat. And they said, now's our chance. We're going to get rid of this dreamer. We've had enough of him, and we're going to do something about it. And so they decided to throw Joseph into a pit. Well, maybe not exactly that pit. We don't know. But it was a pit that they could throw Joseph into and he couldn't get back out of. And the story got worse from there. And eventually it ends up with Joseph being separated from his family altogether. And in another country, he was way down in Egypt. And he was there as a slave because his brothers had sold him into slavery, which is really crazy. Horrible thing. But God was with Joseph all the way through this, the Bible says. And God blessed Joseph, even though the circumstances that Joseph was in were really tough. And God not only blessed Joseph, but Joseph stayed faithful to God. And later on, here's something really interesting that happened. Joseph became really important and had a lot of authority, even though he was a servant. And one day the brothers came, and Joseph was there. And Joseph in this situation was not the little kid anymore. He was the one who was in charge. And the brothers needed some food from Joseph because there was a famine in the land. Now, can you imagine being Joseph? You might think, wow, this is his chance to get even, and he can have revenge on those brothers who treated him so horribly. But if you think that's what Joseph did, you would be wrong. Because Joseph instead chose to forgive his brothers and to show love and kindness to them. And you know, there's a great lesson for us in that story as well. And that is, even though sometimes maybe our brothers or sisters or other people maybe upset us, the Bible says that we shouldn't harbor those feelings inside. That's called a grudge. That we shouldn't have those bad feelings toward that person. Instead, we should treat them kindly. We should forgive them if they've done something wrong to us. And we should show them love and kindness, even though they haven't maybe been loving and kind to us. And that can be really tough to do, especially if it's your younger brother maybe, or your younger sister, and you're like, I've had enough of them. But the story of Joseph reminds us that we can't hold a grudge. Instead, we need to forgive and show love. And what a great thing that is to do, because that's what God would have us to do. And so I would encourage you not to hold grudges, but instead to show love and kindness, even when somebody maybe isn't loving and kind to you. I want to help you to remember this story. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a contest this week. We didn't have one last week, so I don't have a winner to announce. But this week, what we want you to do is maybe dress up in your most colorful coat or shirt or anything like that. And then you can take a picture and you can submit it to our contest. Now, here's what I've noticed. I've noticed that as the weeks have gone on, we've had less and less people who are sending in pictures for the contest, which means that if you send a picture in, your chances of winning will be higher. And so we want to encourage you to send your picture in before Thursday of this week, and Becca's going to tell you exactly how you can do that.
If you want to be entered into this week's contest drawing and be eligible to win cool prizes like these, all you need to do is go to Instagram and send us a picture of your entry in a direct message by Thursday of this week. You can find us on Instagram at NHWC Kids Contest. Well, that's all for today, but we will see you next time.